and welcome to Blue Zone. Today we're going to talk about generic platforms. Now this is the third installment in the FSX War video, and each one becomes a little bit more complex. And in actuality, this is probably one of the most important ones if you're going to create any large platform. So the objective is to learn how to create your own real platform using existing generic platform. Think of the generic platform as a model that you can copy and paste as many times as you want throughout the world. So why do we care? It's because we can create very large campaigns quickly by using pre-designed generic platform. And where would I use it? Useful to create custom theater and campaigns. So now you may say, well, why would I want to put the same thing in many places? Well, the way the FSX War works, the actual piece of equipment in it have some probability of being shown setting that are set. So what that means is every time you generate a theater, the platform will look different. For example, it may have one building may not be there the next time you generate it. And some components are going to be there every single time you generate it. So we'll take a quick look at that just to give you an idea. Prerequisite. Now Airport Designer Pro is required to be able to move and rotate the scenery. Now the Pro version is very inexpensive. It's $10 American the last time I checked. The only issue is that you'll need to install the SDK for your sim for it to work correctly. You will need the help document, and the reason why is I wrote the help document step by step. So when something does not work or you're not sure, go back to the document and follow step by step. It's easy to think that we remember and then realize, uh-oh, forgot something. So use the document, and this video is going to follow the document with a little bit more information to help you understand the concepts. A little patience. It's going to seem daunting at first because there's a lot of steps to be done, but once you're used to it and you understand where everything goes and what you're supposed to have, it becomes simpler. Overview. So the process is simple. We're going to do some specific steps. First one is select the generic platform you want, and we can do that using the document because we have pictures of them in the document. Open Airport Designer. So we'll open the Airport Designer, we'll open the scenery that we like, and then we'll save it in the AD4 format. We're going to use LatLongMover, which is a tool that allows us to take the AD4 format, select where we want to put the generic scenery, and then it will call our Airport Designer to move to the platform. Then we do the move with ADE, and that's what we need ADE for, to move the platform for us. Now in future release, there is a plan to try to move everything within FSX War, but it has not been implemented yet. We're going to compile the platform. We're going to add a compiled platform and declare it into FSX War so we can use it. And adjust the scenery with ADE. May need to rotate it, may need to change the altitude of it or whatnot. Now step 6 and 7 can be interchanged, so it depends on your preference. The assumptions that I'm making with this video. You viewed my previous FSX War video 1 and 2, and hopefully you have attempted or created a pack of your own, because we need a pack to put those sceneries into. If not, I recommend that you try to do what I was doing on video 2 for FSX War and create your own pack so we have something to put the scenery into. Have a registered copy of Airport Designer, ADE. Now if you're not gonna, you don't have to get, but for the time being it is required in order for you to be able to move the scenery around. Now let's jump in and check this out. Now the first thing we are going to do is pick a generic platform that we need to create our real platforms. And the way we're going to do that is by using the help document that is included with FSX War. Now, in that document, there is all the different platforms available. All the generic platforms you could want are listed in there. And the reasoning behind it is that you can pick your generic platform and know what it looks like before you select it. Also, in the document itself, I encourage you to go the step by step because it has all the steps you need to create a generic platform and convert it into to take a generic platform and convert it into a real platform. Now you see in this diagram here, there is the name on the right. On the left, what you actually have is the file name. So let's say if we pick this scenery here, the generic army base 0. So generic army base 0 would be in my add-on scenery somewhere, right? If I look in the add-on scenery, and if you look at the FSX War pack, so the way it works is your FSX War pack 1 folder scenery has all the real scenery here. And if you look at the FSX War pack 1 generic, it has all the generic files. So if you look here, you have generic army base 0. So let's find generic army base 0, and it's right here. Now you'll notice that it has ARB0. That's an ICIO code that was given to it so that when you're working with the generic files, you can easily find it. Not required for what we're going to do, but the file name is important. So that's why that file name is located inside of the generic folder for FSX War. So that's where we're coming to get our file. Now you may think that the file, if I look at the scenery, if I copy it in multiple places, it's going to look all the same. Well, not exactly. So what happens is that these objects here all have what they call an occurrence setting. So let me show you. So if I go into FSX War, and we'll take our example, I'll go to Technical Editor, and I'll go into FSX War pack, and I'll go into the actual generic platform, and army base type 0. Okay, if I look at this army base type 0, I'm going to click on generic equipment, and I don't know if you can see, yeah, if I click on generic equipment, and on the left hand side you will see all the generic equipment. So if I click on it here, and I want to point out, this here is a bit hard to see, but at the bottom there's a setting called occurrence. Now if I go through all these objects that are these pieces of equipment that are part of the actual army base 0, and I go down through the objects, everything that has 100 as an occurrence will show up every time that I create a campaign. But now I want to point out something. So if you look at this one here that I have, Artillery Platoon 5, this one has an occurrence of 45. So that means that every time I create a campaign, 45% of the time, this Artillery Platoon 5 has a chance of showing up. So that's what that does. It creates a new look and feel every time you create a campaign. And what I mean by creating a campaign is that when you go into your pack, for example, let's say I take a Caribbean theater, and I want to create a campaign. I create campaign and Caribbean theater, and I select El Momento de Cuba. As soon as I hit finish, that Platoon 5 that I had in my generic scenery, if I'm using that scenery in here, at this moment it decides, am I going to show it or not? 45% chance of that. Conversely, if you have 0 in that box, it will never show, ever. So if you have objects that don't show up, that's one thing to look for. And if you have 100 in that occurrence, it will show every single time. Now there's an algorithm. I'm simplifying it by saying that by pretending it is percentage, but for it's easier to just use it as 100 is 100% and 0 is 0%. So that takes care of the occurrence. Now it's a little bit a different concept, but you'll get used to it. Now the document itself that I showed earlier actually contains a lot of step-by-steps, and the document was created on purpose to help people go through each step. So if you have issues with creating, after you watch the video, you create a real platform from a generic platform, and if you run into issues, go back to the document and find that portion in the document, which is I believe it's number 2, section 2, and then you can actually follow step by step. So once we actually do this and take this scenery and put it, it will actually put it into our pack. Once we create a real platform, the real platform will actually show up in your pack. So in my case, if I go into Blue Zone Pack 1, this is where my real platform is going to show up. You see I have a couple here already. And notice that they're BGLs and XML files, and they are together. So a little bit more on that as we get closer. Now in the document itself, if I can try to show you quickly here. If you look at the document itself, you're going to see that there is there's step by step, and number 2 is creating a real platform using a generic. That's what we're going to be using. And additionally, what we're going to do is we're going to actually going to rotate and adjust the real platform. So we're going to do section 2 and then section 3. And those are step-by-step instructions that you can follow. And you'll notice here that there are little bullets, and they're basically kind of little side notes to help you understand what the step is about. So I encourage you to use the document at first until you get used to it, or when you run into issues. So we now have the Airport Design Editor, commonly referred to as ADE, and this here is a paid version. And this is required to help us move, rotate, and adjust the scenery that we're going to create from the generic scenery. So we'll be using this tool to create the scenery, move the scenery to a real platform. A few things we need to do is first we need to set up our environment. Our environment, we need to tell it where we're going to save the files, where we're going to compile our scenery. So if we go into Setting and Options, now you will see here there's numerous tabs. Select the Project tab. This basically tells ADE where to save things. The project files, it will save it into the ADE FSX projects in my case because I'm using FSX. And it's also, and it's saying that it's going to save it in add-on scenery of my FSX drive, which is not what I want. So I need to change the folder where it's going to save. So I got to tell it to pick a specific folder, and I want to go save it. I want it to save into my add-on scenery, my pack name, and the scenery folder itself. This is where I want it to save it. Therefore, I select that path and click Select Folder, and now it has my path in here where I want to save my scenery. Notice that, I don't know if you paid attention, you would see that this here also changed at the same time, because we have the Save XML option with BGL file. We want to have the XML with the BGL file, so you should have that setting. And then since we told it to save it with the BGL file, it automatically changed the path to where it should be putting my XML file along with my BGL file. So now after we have that setting done, we can hit save, and now it's saved. So the next thing we want to do is we want to open our scenery. So we're going to go to the file menu, and we're going to tell it open airport from BGL. Now remember that we selected a generic General Army Base 0. Now it's in the path of the add-on scenery, FSX War Pack 1 generic scenery folder, and I find my generic gen_army base_0 BGL. There's another BGL, CVX BGL. Do not select that one. You need to select the one that just says BGL, the name, then BGL. Then you click open. Now that will open your scenery. Now you may find in your scenery, you may find some black squares. Now if you have black squares, it's going to ask you, are you sure you want to save, and then all kinds of different things. So what I do normally is if I have an FSX at War screen, FSX at War, I mean, if I download a new version of FSX at War, I actually add the objects from FSX at War inside ADE, so I don't have that problem. And the way you do this, you basically would go into the tool, library object manager. Once it is up, this is where all the objects that are used in ADE are located. If they're not in here, it gives you a black square. Therefore, I'm going to add a folder, and I'm going to tell it, go look inside of the add-on scenery for FSX at War Pack 1 scenery. And I will select that folder. Now it's going to go through all of them. Now notice that it says file 1 of 375. I've done mine already, so it won't tell me the some objects. It will say that it already has all the objects. So what you can do is you can hit your enter key and hold it down until you get close to 375. And it's important not to get past 375, otherwise you won't be able to tell it to keep the changes. So you just keep scrolling through. And we're in the 200s. And we just passed the 300s. And when you get towards the end, what you want to do is start using your actual mouse. And the mouse will not let you go past. What we want to do is get to the end and not get to this screen here and not close this by accident. So folder process, I click OK. And in my case, it did not have any changes to save, so it took the screen away, but there's a save button you would click to save the change. And then you won't have any black squares. You shouldn't have any more black squares because BGL will have that information readily available for AD to use and actually give you your scenery here. Now, what we're going to do now is we're actually going to save this document, this BGL file, and we're going to save it as an ADE format. And bear with me here, just want to make sure I get my information correct. Essentially following the steps like I was telling you from the document, just to make sure that I don't miss anything. I'm familiar with it and I follow the steps, so that should tell you that the steps are important to follow, especially if you're brand new to this. So the first thing we want to do is we want to actually save the airport as. So we'll go to the file menu and we're going to pick save airport as, this one here. Now it comes up with some names, and what we want to do is we want to change the name. So in this case here, it's going to be, we can reuse the same name that it was for the file itself. So we could say Jin _ Army Base . Zero. Oops. And then this file here actually had an ICAO of ARB0. You don't have to put it in, but I put it in. And this is what I have here. So that's the name of the file that I'm going to save. So, and this is a path it will save. That's a path I selected in my settings, if you recall. So I will save the file. Now the airport is saved as an ADE4 format. So at this point we are done with ADE. We can go ahead and close it. We also need to set up file association. So if you go into your ADE file where it's stored, you see here that it's not associated with any program. We need it to be associated. So you can right click, select open, and then it's going to ask you for a program that you want to select. So you want to use ADE. If it's not in the list, you need to go and look for it. So we're going to make sure that whatever we look for, check that box here so that every time it opens an ADE file, it will find the program that you associated with it. Now if you go into your default installation and find the airport editor, select it, click select, and then click OK. You'll see that the program is selected now in the box, and now the association is actually made with it. You can see the icon has changed. Now if I open the icon by double clicking the file, it opens ADE with your file. That's all there is to that. So now you have that file association done. The next step in our process is to actually use a tool called LatLongMover, and what that will do is basically help us move our generic scenery, copy it into our real scenery. Now to do that, we need to use a tool that's called LatLongMover, and it's part of your FSX War. If you left it where it is by default, in your FSX War you have a folder called LatLongMover _1.32. If you open that folder, there's a LatLongMover tool that we'll be running. There's one configuration we need to make before we run the tool. There is a configuration file called config.ini. If we open that file, you'll notice the path of the airport designer that it has. Now everybody has it installed wherever they want. Mine is on my H drive, so it does not reflect what the airport designer is. So what you need to do is you need to update the path here. So if I go find mine is in my HADE drive, and it's right at the root of the ADE drive. So what I could do here is I will alter the path to reflect what I have. So my path is H, and a short form the folder, and airport designer.exe. So if I look at the path here, it matches HADE airport designer.editor.exe. So now all I have to do is save the file. So now what that will do is that once I use the LatLongMover tool, it will know where to call. It will know which editor to open, which is Airport Designer Editor, when it's time to move the scenery. Now we're going to go and use a tool that's provided with FSX War. And assuming you've left it default, if you look in FSX War folder in your installation, you will see a LatLongMover folder. Open that folder, and you can go ahead and open the LatLongMover application that we've just configured. Now it wants you to provide the AD4 file that you're going to use for your scenery to move it. We've already saved it as an ADE file, if you remember this file here, and the file was in my ADE FSX project folder. So now select that file, and now it loads Airport Designer. So remember we made the association with that file AD4, that was why. So now you see that down here we have the actual generic platform that we saved in ADE4. Now the LatLongMover tool is going to help us move it to wherever we like. Like for example, if you've used CCP, it works very similar. So if I go to, let's say, I want to go to Lecce, Italy. If I could spell it, would be great. It would take you directly to where you want to go in Italy. You can also use manual coordinates, put your own lat long and the altitude of the place you selected, and that will work also. You got different maps you got terrain map, you have satellite map, and you have OSM map. Now, the one that you use that does not make a difference which one you use. It works like CCP. So we're going to select where we want to put our scenery. I personally want to put it somewhere in Agrigento. So let's go select somewhere in Agrigento. And I just want to pick a spot here. So I'm going to move my cross. I hope you can see the red cross. It's right over Agrigento, center on it, and then I just start zooming in. So now I'm zooming in and I'm trying to find a spot where there's nothing like here. It looks like a blank spot here. Now notice when you move, it actually gets the location, the lat long, and the altitude. So you want to make sure it has the altitude. You want to be close to what the altitude is so that you can, looks like this is mountainous. That would be perfect for what we're trying to do. Okay, and we'll be adjusting our scenery later on. So once you've decided where it's going to be at, then you can select that position. Now what it will do is it will bring up a screen that allows you to move the airport. So now what you want to do is select all the checkboxes here and simply click on move. Now it's going to tell you we're about to move. Do you want to save your AD4 file now that we've moved it? It gives you the opportunity to save it. So I would recommend do the same thing. You can save it, it's optional. It already exists, you want to replace it? Sure. And now it's essentially just created the AD4 and moved it to that new location. So now this is still not yet a real platform. We need to make some changes in ADE for this platform to work in our FSX War. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the Files menu and Airport Properties. And go to Airport Properties. Now you have the airport here. This already exists because we used it for the scenery. So select something that's not used, and for me I'm going to use BZ, which stands for Blue Zone, and I'll call this one 01. And it's going to be in my FSX, no, the country. What I do is I would put actually Blue Zone, Pack 1, and then Italy. And this way I can go look at them. The city, if you recall, the city that we have was Agrigento. And the airport name, now this is important. The name itself has to have a specific format. So the airport name, I'm going to call it Rio _ RL. And then that's the part that's important. After that, you can put anything you like, but I recommend you put what it is. So I'm going to put Army Base. And then after that, I'm going to put the actual location, which is Agrigento. Now, once you have put that information in there, you can click, you just go ahead and click OK. And it will basically save that information with this AD4 file. So it's now set that way. So the next thing we have to do, now that we have our file renamed, or I should say our platform somewhat renamed, it's still in AD4 format. Next thing we need to do is we need to compile it so that we can use it in our FSX or in our scenery in our P3D. Now this is the point where it becomes an actual real scenery. So there's a button here that's called compile. So you can click on the compile button at the top right. Now it will bring up a screen here. And it says sync com file name with project name. Uncheck that. You don't want to have that. what you want to have here is the same thing we put in the name earlier. So real underscore RL underscore army base underscore Agrigento. Now another thing that's important, you'll see that the airport identification here already says BZ01, which is what I set. Now you're going to see the path for the compile folder. It should be in your pack folder under scenery. And if you go under more options, it should show that the XML path will be in the same folder because we chose that the XML would be with the BGL file. So that is what we want. And now ready for a drum roll. Ta-da! It's compiling the airport. So now the airport has been compiled, and it is actually in my scenery platform, my scenery folder for my pack. So now let's go take a look here, and we can close everything. We don't need this anymore. And you can save it when you close if you like. We don't need to, it's been compiled, and we'll go take a look at that. So in my case, I'll save it because it doesn't hurt. So now let me go back to my FSX add-on scenery, my Blue Zone Pack scenery, and you will see that I have my real platform army base Agrigento here that's been compiled and is ready for me to use. So now the next step for us is to go and actually add this platform into our FSX War so it will recognize the platform. So let's go ahead and take care of that. First thing I need to do is I'm going to need to start my FSX War for the work that I need to get done here. So there's my FSX War, and I'm going to go with my tactical reference editor, and I'll open my Blue Zone pack. I'm going to go to my real platform. Okay, you see that I already have two real platforms here. So now I'm going to add a real platform. Now we need to have the is above FSX scenery checked. Now see here where the two red dots are. Click on this first one, the three dots for the file name. Select your new army base, Agrigento. Okay, and here you would can give it a name of your choosing. So I would call it the Agrigento army base, and the generic platform ID. So you want to go and pick up the army base type 0 that we've actually selected before. So that's important that it's the same type that you selected, otherwise the scenery won't look like you think it should. Okay, notice how it populates the information automatically for you. Now, this is not an airport. Do not put in the ICAO code. You don't need to do flight plans. Now, below that it says copy position from FSX scenery. Since we moved it ourselves, let's go ahead and do that. Click, and there we go. So it's already positioned it for us. So now, this platform has been added to our scenery in FSX. So now just to make sure that we save it, I will get out and save it. Okay, now I can go back into my pack, go into real platform, and now I will select the real platform. The reason why I am doing this is that so when I go into my FSX and look at the real platform, it will show the platform and its equipment. So the next step is to look at it in FSX. The next thing to accomplish is to adjust our scenery, or adjust our real platform so that it is meshes well with the FSX environment. Now I'm going to show you how to change the altitude, how to rotate it, and the rotation takes place clockwise in degrees. I'm also going to show you how to remove auto-generated trees, for example, from your scenery, so you don't have trees coming out of your building that's part of your base. So I'll show you how to do these. I'm going to do it once, but in reality what you would do is you would go in, adjust the altitude, rotate it, check it out, see if you like it, do more adjustments until you're completely happy. Then you would put a what we call a polygon that will suppress the auto generation of trees, for example, and backgrounds around your platform. And then then you have to readjust the position, because when we actually rotate the base, we actually change the heading position of the base. Therefore, we have to use a copy position for FSX scenery in order to update it so that all the objects will be lined up. So let us first make sure that we select our army base that we created that we want to go look at and actually adjust. Now that we have that done, let's go and find our army base. And you remember that I'm going to use my trusted Bob. If you've seen me use this in my other videos, and bear with me. And that's a free tool from Orbix that you can get. Now the airport, I called mine BZ, short for Blue Zone. And you see when I do that, it comes up automatically with some the real platform I created already. So there's the one we worked on, BZ01, so I'll select this one. And I'm going to make that during the day. And let's make it clear so we can see everything. So our goal is to go to our scenery, take a look at it, and see what we need to do to adjust it to make it part of the landscape. And now when you put it in a mountainous area, it becomes a challenge to make it look right, but some people are very picky, spend a lot of time doing it. Some other people just try to find a flat land and put it on. It is up to you. I will show you how to set the altitude, rotate it, and remove the auto-generated, and then you'll be on your own, my friend. So here we are on the base, and I'm going to go into slew mode and take a look at the base. Now I have my Shift Z turned on, so I have my altitude and whatnot. So let's take a look to see what it looks like. So you can see that we're on the hill here, and it looks like it's a hill that we created. Yep, it looks like we created that hill by the altitude not being correct. So what we want to do is find an altitude that would be close. So let's take a look here. So let's say that's the altitude I want to bring it down. And if I look at that altitude here, it gives me 411 feet. So 411 feet is what I want to set it to. Now, as far as the rotation, I'm sure there's some roads to line up with, but if I'm on this side of the base here, you can see that it's perpendicular with it points towards the ocean, the tower. So I'm going to rotate it by 90 degrees, and it will make it parallel to the ocean itself. So 90-degree rotation and 411 feet. So that's our what we have to march to. So we need to completely get out of FSX because it locks the scenery file, and we can get out of this one here and save the change on the way out. There we go. And now what we need to do is we need to open our software for the scenery, so the AD software, and what we want to do is we're going to bring it up, change it, and we're going to save it. So first thing first, let's open the scenery. So we go File and Open Airport from BGL. Now it brings me to my folder because it remembers where it's at, and the base I want to change is Army Base Agrigento.bgl. So I click on Open, and I now have my base. Now the first thing I want to do is I want to change the altitude of this base. So to change the altitude, I will go into the Tools menu, and there's a selection called Change Airport Reference Data. So we'll select that, and then I would be presented with a screen that looks like this, very familiar to what we had before. And the altitude here, I will change that to the value of 411. Now I'm sure that this will not make it perfect, but you can repeat this process over and over, the altitude and the rotation. And once you're happy with it, you come back and put what we call a polygon to suppress auto generation of trees or that kind of stuff. I'll show you how, and then you do something with FSX War and you're done. So now it says, note that the polygons are going to change, and we don't care because when we're all done is when we're going to add a flattened terrain polygon. So I click OK. Now it has changed the altitude. Now I also said that I want to do a rotation. Now to rotate, you right click and select Rotate Airport. That's simple. Check all the boxes. And we said we're going to rotate it by 90 degrees. So I will select 90 degrees and click Rotate. And once again, it's telling me you moved and whatnot. You're going to have issues with polygon. Objects may not be at the right place. So we click OK. And now it wants us to save the project as AD4. We don't have to, so I can click cancel on this. So now this file here, this BGL file we just altered, we need to save it, compile it, and then check in FSX, go back and forth until it is the way we want to. So assuming it is the way we want to, we've compiled it, so let me compile it just to show you here. So to compile, you would actually go and uncheck this and put the real file name here. Here's a trick. Open your folder, go get the name of your file right here, and copy it. So this way you can reuse it. Cancel out, and put the file name here. And now every time you use it, it will keep using that name. So hit compile, and it saves your change in your folder, and you can keep checking back and forth with your FSX FSX. And once it's the way you like it, then you're all set. Now the next thing we want to do is add the last thing. Once we're happy with the position, the altitude, we want to add a polygon. Now this little green circle here allows you to add polygons. So you click that and it gives you a selection tool. Now the selection tool, you click and then you left click. So let me start this here. Mine's not going to be perfect, but you can be more accurate if you want. Then you drag it until the next point that you want to click. So drag it to here, click again and drag it, click again and drag it. So you get the picture. So basically what you want to do is click and drag all the way around your scenery. And we're going to select to suppress any auto-generated objects that may cause our real platform to look weird. And once you're all done, you double left click, it turns yellow. So now it's asking you, what do you want to do with this selection that you created? So you want to make sure that you have airport background selected, and you want to select flatten mask class map exclude autogen. That's a mouthful, but it's a flattened mask class map exclude autogen. You'll notice that my altitude is what I chose it to be, which is 411 feet. So now I click OK to save it. And now it's applied the autogen. But we're not done. We have to compile it to make sure that our BGL is up to date. So the FSX War has the latest up to date BGL. So let me compile. And notice I kept our name because we compiled multiple times to just before that. So I hit compile. And now that is updated. So the next step is to go check into your FSX. But before you do, we've changed the position. So we have to tell FSX War what the new position is. Otherwise, it's not going to know where it's at. So what you want to do is you want to go all the way out and make sure that you're out. Go back into tactical reference editor, and you notice how it has a warning on your pack now. That's because you move the scenery, and in the real platform you have a warning again, and your army base has a warning. And notice what it says here: position is not right. So you click on copy position from FSX scenery, everything is beautiful. So now you keep it selected, and let's go take a look at what it looks like in FSX. Hopefully we're close. Hang tight. See you back in FSX. Now you see the adjusted scenery where it matches the altitude of where the stuff is at, and I've suppressed the generation of trees and things around. And you can adjust this scenery as however you like, and then just keep updating. And eventually, once you're happy with it, then you'll end up with something that looks good. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please subscribe, hit like. Uh, this concludes how to create a real platform in FSX at War using the multitude of generic platforms provided by FSX at War and other people with their packs. So I encourage you to experiment and create some very elaborate campaign to share with other people, with your friends or your squad and what have you. So once again, this is how you create a real platform from an existing generic platform. It's been a blast. It's Blue, over and out.